As we look ahead to the trial of Sheriff Mickey Stines, who shot the Judge Kevin Mullins in the judge's chambers, coming up in that murder trial, we have to look now at the case that preceded it, the one that caused the sheriff to shoot the judge in those chambers. This case against Ben Fields, which is about to go to court now, which is going ahead here in just a couple of months, is now going to give us the information we need. Why did the sheriff decide to shoot the judge in the judge's chambers? Let's look at the details in Ben Fields' case that led to the shooting of that judge. The devil's in the details. Let's go. Now, every single Saturday, we take one of the Devils in the Details episodes from the week before. This one is going to be an expansion on Devils in the Details episode 2 about the trial of Ben Fields. This is related in ways to the Sheriff Stines, Mickey Stines, shooting Kevin Mullins, the Judge Kevin Mullins, in the judge's chambers a while back. And many people have speculated about what happened. This case that Sheriff Stines was deposed in about his deputy, Ben Fields, and actions that took place in the judge's chambers is the reason why, in my opinion, that judge was shot and killed in the judge's chambers. If this is confusing to you, you need to pay attention. We're going to deep dive on the court case coming up against Ben Fields, the civil case against Ben Fields, because it's going to completely inform why the sheriff shot the judge in the judge's chambers. Are you following along? Okay. Before you get too far, by the way, make sure you subscribe to this channel. You're going to miss so much. We do deep dives. We get lawyers involved. We get police officers involved. We get a lot of people talking about this case from many, many different angles, with the presumption of innocence until proven guilty and a critical examination of our judicial system and our legal system, or well, it's the same thing, our law enforcement systems and mainstream media. We play devil's advocates with the mainstream media. So make sure that if you are into those kind of things, that you subscribe right now so you don't miss anything. There's a lot of great content coming. You do not want to miss it. You can subscribe to just the playlist on this particular case or any of the cases I follow, which includes Idaho 4, Long Island serial killer Rex Heuermann, Luigi Mangione, and others. We cover a lot, and Charlie Kirk situation. We cover several cases, all with a similar vein, playing devil's advocates with the mainstream narrative. Now, let's get into the foundational documents today in this deep dive on the case of Ben Fields, a deputy of Sheriff Stines. Remember, we're ultimately, I'm talking on this channel about Sheriff Stines shooting the judge in the judge's chambers. This is the case that comes before it. It's the case that informs why that sheriff shot the judge. This is a case of Mickey Stines' deputy, Ben Fields, on trial for a civil case regarding misconduct in that same judge's chambers. You need to understand what happened and how Mickey Stines' role in this case played to the shooting of the judge coming up. You cannot separate these. So let's get into the details now in this deep dive. This document I'm going to put on the screen, this was the original filing. This is from January 31st, 2022. This is when Sabrina Atkins filed as the plaintiff against Ben Fields, who was the deputy sheriff of Letcher County Sheriff's Department. Mickey Stines being the sheriff of Letcher County Sheriff's Department when Ben Fields was his deputy. So this is all the pretext to what's happened to the shooting of the judge in the judge's chambers, but it's a different case. This is a case by Sabrina Atkins, later amended to add Jennifer Hill, a person who brought more charges against Ben Field and then somehow accidentally died, and the case was dismissed. This case is nuts. Literally, this was said by somebody in this case. People are going to start dying in this case, and already it has happened, in my opinion. One of the people who brought suit against Ben Fields has already died mysteriously. We're getting into that, and we're going to cover that later. We're still looking into the circumstances of her death. But let's get the foundational paperwork done on Sabrina Atkins and Jennifer Hill, who later will just die in the course of this investigation. And then, of course, the judge who gets murdered in the course of this investigation. Lots of people are going to die in the course of this case. So you need to pay attention to the minute details, which we're going to start covering right now. Some of this is going to be a lot of extra reading, and I realize you want me to shut the fuck up and just get going on it. So let me try to, you know, whenever I say the F word, it's my reminder to put parental advisory down below. That's my trigger. I'm learning now when I drop my first F-bomb in a video, put the parental advisory on. This is not a kid-friendly show. Nothing about, I have every single night I do a Crimes After Dark. Anyways, I need to get going. It's only been 5 minutes. It sounds like longer, but it's only been 5 minutes. Sabrina Atkins, plaintiff. This is again from January 31st. So we're going to hit the highlights so you understand factually from the public records. Some of this I've talked about before, but I want you to see it in the actual court documents because that's where the details are at, right? And that's where we have the real, not just me talking, but what the details are. This is a civil action for damages for violation of constitutional rights of the plaintiff by the defendants acting under color of state law. Who are the defendants? Ben Fields and the Sheriff's Department, then basically represented the Sheriff's Department by Shawn Mickey Stines, the judge that the sheriff that shot the judges in the judges' chambers. So this particular action is against the Sheriff's Department, of which Mickey Stines was in charge, and his deputy. Okay. Plaintiffs assert that the defendant Fields, in his individual and official capacities, violated the plaintiff's rights secured by the 4th and 14th Amendments to the United States Constitution, as well as sections 1, 2, and 10 of the Kentucky Constitution, by subjecting the plaintiff to arbitrary actions, unreasonable search and seizure, and deprivation of liberty. The plaintiff also alleges that the defendant Fields, Ben Fields, is liable under state law for damages for false imprisonment, assault and battery, malicious prosecution, intentional infliction of emotional distress, negligence, and gross negligence. Defendant Fields' unknown supervisors and defendant Letcher County sheriffs, that's where Mickey Stines comes in, is alleged to be liable to the plaintiff for deliberate indifference in failing to adequately train and supervise defendant Fields. So there are two things. Defendant Fields, Ben Fields, is being accused of sexually assaulting, including sodomizing a woman in the judge's chambers, the very judge's chamber, that the very judge who got shot and killed, that he was doing that under the supervision of the Sheriff's Department, who should have known better that this was going on. And that's where Mickey Stines comes in. Mickey Stines should have, and they argue did know this was happening. And after, listen, we're going to try to break this down in multiple ways. After Sheriff Mickey Stines was deposed in this case about his deputy. Did you train your deputy not to sodomize women in the judge's chambers or not? Yes. Did you foster an environment where your deputies thought this was acceptable behavior? Those are the allegations. Did Mickey Stines know exactly what was going on in his sheriff's department? Is he possibly part of the culture that led to deputies and judges sodomizing women in the judge's chambers? And I would say that the answer probably is yes. That's the heart of it, right? And so when this began to unravel, and Mickey Stines was deposed in this case, and it was beginning to unravel that he was going to be the center, Mickey Stines is going to be the center of all this thing, that he was allowing sexual abuses to happen among his deputies in the judge's chambers, he arguably lost his shit and started to become unstable days after this deposition, and then shot and killed the judge in the judge's chambers after he was allegedly threatened himself to shut the fuck up about what's happening in this department. I know that sounds super confusing. If you haven't followed this, stay with it. I will try to make it clear as mud. The parties in this case are the plaintiff, a resident of Pike County, Kentucky, and the defendant Fields was at all times relevant to this complaint, acting as Letcher County Sheriff, deputy sheriff. Defendant Fields, let me close this side thing. Defendant Fields, let me see if I can center this too. Holy crap. Defendant Fields is sued in his official capacity on the declaration relief and damages claims, and in his individual capacity as to all claims set forth herein. Upon information and belief, Defendant Fields is a resident of Letcher County, Kentucky. At all times relevant hereto, Defendant Fields was acting under the color of state law in performing the acts or omissions complained of in this complaint. The important part of that sentence is that he was acting under the color of law. What that means is this is not Ben Fields' personal need to get off and have sex with women and making it a personal issue. This is going after the sheriff's department in whole because he was acting under the color of law. His uniform was on. He was doing these things under the color of law, meaning that the department, the law, the sheriff's department is also responsible for what happened when he abused his power under color of law. Plaintiff was arrested in Letcher County, Kentucky. Now, the plaintiff, this is talking about Sabrina Atkins. This is the person who filed the first lawsuit. That's what we're going to talk about right here in this document. We got multiple documents we're covering today, and it's going to cover a lot of time. This is Sabrina Atkins' original complaint against Ben Fields. Later, only a couple months later, she will add another amended person, Jennifer Hill, who will come and say, yeah, I agree with everything that Sabrina Atkins started, and let me tell you my story as well. And so it became an amended complaint. We're going to cover that as well. And then we're going to cover some of the rulings got made on that as we proceed to trial. Now, here's the factual parts about Sabrina. From April 2021 through June 2nd, 2021, plaintiff was incarcerated at the Letcher County Jail. And some people may say like maybe it's Lecter County, but you look at the way it's spelled, Letcher. It better not be Lecter, which would be Lecta. Anyways, these pronunciation things can drive me nuts. If I'm getting it wrong, I will fix it after a few of you bust your nut on my nuts and tell me you're pronouncing it wrong. But it looks like Letcher when it's spelled out, and I just haven't lived in Kentucky, so I don't know. In early June 2021, plaintiff was released from the Letcher County Jail and placed on home incarceration. So all of this happens between April 2021 and June 2021. In June 2021, she was released from the Letcher County Jail and placed on home incarceration. Defendant Fields, that's Ben Fields, a deputy sheriff with Letcher County Sheriff's Department, was assigned to the plaintiff's as the home incarceration officer. So Ben Fields becomes her supervisor while she's out on ankle monitoring, home supervision. After she was released, the plaintiff had, this is Sabrina Atkins, the plaintiff had a difficult time finding housing accommodations in Letcher County. Defendant Fields was aware of the plaintiff's housing issue as well as the plaintiff's domestic issues. Defendant Fields, Ben Fields, visited the plaintiff in the evening, the night that she was released from the Letcher County Jail, to bring her cigarettes and to console her. What a nice guy Ben Fields is. He's going to go console this person recently released and now onto prison or home incarceration. At this time, plaintiff notified, that's Sabrina Atkins, notified defendant Ben Fields that she did not have the money to pay for her ankle bracelet. While you're on home incarceration, while you may have been granted the right to go home on an ankle bracelet, that costs that person money. And the tune, I think, last I looked at, about $80 a week. Not a whole lot of money, but when you're indigent, you don't have a job because you've been in jail, you don't have $80 a week to pay your ankle monitoring fee. So the plaintiff told Ben Fields, hey, look, I don't have the money to pay for my ankle monitor bracelet, but she was terrified to return to Letcher County Jail. So it's like, hey, look, I can't pay for my ankle monitoring, but I don't want to go back to jail. I'm afraid of going back to jail. It's dangerous in that jail. This is essentially what she's saying. So, point 15, defendant Fields made flirtatious comments about the plaintiff's looks and body and told her that he was confident that they could work something out. So, this sets up this whole scheme. And it happens, by the way, I think a lot more than we realize. I've been told by others in other states, this kind of thing is common practice. But let's put that aside for the moment. I mean, think about it, but let's put it aside that we're just worried about Kentucky. But maybe this is a systemic problem. Think about the conditions that are allowing this to happen and ask yourself if you think this could happen other places. Defendant Fields, we already get that. So point 16, plaintiff understood. So Sabrina Atkins understood these communications to mean that she would receive favorable treatment from the defendant Fields if she provided him with sexual favors. So being that he's talking about how good looking she is and how smoking hot her body is, and that they can work something out, she understood, as a reasonable person would, that means that if I provide you some kind of sexual favors, maybe I can work out a deal where I don't have to pay for my ankle monitor. That's what that we're setting up. Thereafter, the plaintiff, Sabrina Atkins, and defendant Fields communicated on a regular basis by text messages. Okay, now here's where the crux is going to come in. We will read it in detail later, but Ben Fields is going to argue that she flirted with him over text messages for quite a long time, 7 months, daily, and even sent nude photos of herself to him and whatever. So this means that she just really dug that guy. She likes me. Look at how much she flirts with me. This is proof that this was a consensual and ongoing mutual agreement because, look, I've got text messages showing she texts me all the time. She sends me nude photos. She must really like me. And everything that happened between us is because of how attractive I am as a male and how she was just really, really impressed with my uniform. That's basically the argument Ben Fields is going to make. she's going to make Sabrina Atkins and her lawyers that she was coerced under the color of law because he was an officer in uniform saying, if you work with me, I'll help you get off of the ankle monitor that you can't afford. So in late June of 2021, defendant Fields asked Sabrina to meet her to meet her at the Letcher County Courthouse in the evening after dark. So defendant Fields, Ben Field, asked Sabrina to meet, and it says her, it should have said him, right? Because defendant Fields is a male, asked Sabrina to meet him at the Letcher County Courthouse in the evening after dark. Defendant Fields, Ben Fields, took the plaintiff into the district judge Kevin Mullins' chambers, telling the plaintiff that he wanted to meet her there because there were no cameras. Now, the first thing I have to tell you, just use common fucking sense. You don't think the judge knows what's happening in the judge's chambers? Later on, it will come out that the judge allegedly, by other people's affidavits, affidavit means somebody's got a sworn statement of fact. I know that the judge was having sex with women in this county, inmates as well. I've seen the judge doing it. I've seen tapes of the judge having sex with people. But we're going to maintain during Ben Field's entire trial that the judge had no knowledge of what was going on in his chambers and that the judge wasn't himself participating in this scheme. I cry bullshit, but I wanted to give you the foundation as we, again, pay attention to what's in the actual legal documents, and I will try to explain how there's more to the story, but I'm trying to make sure you understand what's factual and what's allegation. All right? Now, point 20. At this time, defendant Fields took off the plaintiff's ankle monitor and told her that she would have to pay the associated fee. She would not have to pay the associated fees any longer, but could remain out on home incarceration. The defendant Fields took off her ankle monitor, told her that she would not have to pay the fees any longer and could remain out on home incarceration. The condition of being on home incarceration is that you wear your ankle monitor, but he's letting her know you don't have to, you can still maintain your status of being on home incarceration with your ankle monitor off, and you don't have to pay for it. This is the deal that I've given you. Between late June and December 2021, defendant Fields met the plaintiff at the Letcher County Courthouse in the evening or early morning hours approximately 6 times. So this was an ongoing thing. She would come to the courthouse and they would take her off the ankle monitor 6 times. During these meetings, defendant Fields' behavior escalated from flirtatious comments to forcible kissing, to oral sex, to intercourse with the plaintiff, all of which occurred at the Letcher County Courthouse after hours in Judge Mullins' chambers, hereafter the quote-unquote sexual abuse. So we're calling this the sexual abuse. Ben Fields will say, look, this is a mutual thing. She likes me. We had sex in the judge's chamber where there wasn't any cameras. No big deal. It's a mutual, 2 parties consenting kind of thing. She will offer, no, I was doing it because you were an officer of the law offering me a deal saying that I wouldn't go back to jail and you'd give me a free off-the-cuff monitoring in exchange for those sexual favors. Ultimately, of course, we're going to find that the judge will allow, in this case, it to go forward, that maybe this was not a consensual act. The plaintiff was coerced and compelled, this is point 23, plaintiff was coerced and compelled to comply with the defendant Fields' advances given the defendant's position of power and because she could not afford to pay for the ankle monitor and did not want to return to the Letcher County Jail. Point 24, plaintiff did not consent to the sexual abuse. Again, Ben Fields is going to say, look, this was totally consensual. She dug me. She likes me. But point 24, her complaint is, I did not consent to it. I did it because you had leverage on me and I feared for my safety. These meetings would typically occur the night before the plaintiff had a court appearance, and defendant Fields would put plaintiff's ankle monitor back on and or otherwise fix it so that she could appear compliant with her home incarceration the following day. Now, I want to really detail this and have you understand. On the home ankle monitoring, that monitor has to be either at the courthouse because she's there for a court appearance or at her home. Those are the 2 places that ankle monitor bracelet's allowed to be. So what they would do, you have to understand, to complete the ruse that there's nothing bad going on in this county, they would put her ankle monitor bracelet back on before she walked into the courtroom in front of cameras and the public, making it look like she's always been wearing her ankle monitor. And then when she got out of that courtroom, she'd go right back to the judge's chambers during working hours. For those of you who think this all happens behind hours and the judge has no idea, this would happen while she was in court. She would go to court during business hours, have the ankle monitor on to make it look like she's compliant, go back to the judge's chambers while the court is in session or while people are at the courthouse, have that ankle monitor removed, and then go home without her ankle monitor. But it would be looking like she's still compliant because she's just been at the courthouse the whole time. Of course, someone later on is going to be able to check the location of that device and see that it never left the courthouse, but they didn't think anybody would look that far. Now, upon information and belief, in late December 2021, certain persons at the Letcher County Courthouse were notified that the defendant Fields was having inappropriate communications and relations with the plaintiff, and were provided text messages evidencing the inappropriate communication and relations. So, at some point, according to this complaint, other people at the courthouse were informed that this ruse was going on, that Sabrina Atkins would come in and have her ankle monitor removed and she'd go home without the ankle monitor, and that there was inappropriate things going on between the deputy and this person in the judge's chambers, and everyone in the fucking courthouse allegedly may have known about it. And people were being provided text messages between these two individuals showing that they had a relationship going on and that this was happening. So other people were aware. I would say a lot of people are aware. That's the whole crux of this whole case. How many people in this county knew this shit was going on and looked the other way? How far up does it go? Point 27. Upon information and belief, defendant Fields became aware of the information contained in the preceding paragraph. So in other words, at some point, Ben Fields found out people at the courthouse were aware of what was going on between him and Sabrina Atkins, and that there were text messages and stuff flirting around. So now Ben Fields is going to know that everyone knows his dirty business. In late December 2021, defendant Fields stopped communicating with the plaintiff by text message or otherwise. The allegation is that once Ben Fields realized people were aware of what was going on between him and her, he stopped text messaging her. This has no evidence that he changed his behavior or was having second thoughts, other than now he wants to make sure, shit, if people are talking about it and sharing my text messages, maybe I need to be more careful about this. Upon information and belief, point 29, upon information and belief in early January 2022, defendant Fields filed a complaint against the plaintiff, claiming that she was not complying with the terms of her home incarceration. This is the ballsy move. Ben Fields now is going to file a complaint against Sabrina for not wearing your ankle monitor. So let me get this straight. Ben Fields takes her ankle monitor off in exchange for sex in the judge's chambers. And then when she starts telling people about it and complaining about the forced conditions that she's under having sex with them, he files a complaint against her and say, hey, are you at home without your ankle monitor on? Even though he's the one that took it off. Are you at home without your ankle? I'm going to have to arrest your ass for violating your home incarceration. All right. Point 30, upon information and belief, this complaint was filed maliciously by defendant Fields in an effort to punish the plaintiff and in an attempt to save his own job and reputation. So yes, Ben Fields is trying to punish Sabrina for letting people know about their arrangement. And now he's going to say, hey, are you home alone without your ankle monitor? Gee, I guess I'm going to have to arrest you. The plaintiff was arrested then, Sabrina, on January 26, 2022 in Pike County, Kentucky. The plaintiff is terrified, point 32, the plaintiff is terrified that she will be transferred to the Letcher County Jail, where, upon information and belief, defendant Fields' wife is employed as an officer, and where, upon information and belief, the defendant Fields was previously employed. OMFG. This is new information to me. Not only did defendant Ben Fields' deputy sheriff have this sexual relationship going on with a person on home incarceration, his wife, Ben Fields' wife, who's sodomizing women in the judge's chambers, works at the detention center where this inmate is housed. And this woman, Sabrina, is afraid that if Ben Fields' wife is at the detention center and I don't play along with her husband's little kinky games of sodomizing inmates in the judge's chambers, then his wife will help retaliate against me. Holy shit, how many fucking people know about this thing? Now, we don't know to what extent they're afraid of this, but Ben Fields also is engaged with the correctional facility, along with his wife, who's engaged with the correctional facility. And Sabrina Atkins is saying, I'm afraid because Ben Fields is having me arrested and put into the correctional facility where his wife is in control of my safety. I'm afraid of the whole situation. The plaintiff, Sabrina Atkins, has serious concerns for her safety and welfare if she were to be transferred to the Letcher County Jail. And why wouldn't she? Not only has it been argued by multiple people that that's a dangerous jail in the first place, but now the guy who's coercing you and forcing you into sex in exchange for being off your ankle monitor, his wife works for the same correctional facility and may be able to arrange that something bad happens to you under her care. That's what they're basically alleging, in my opinion. Point 34. Upon information and belief that there were other women who the defendant Fields has similarly abused. So Sabrina became aware that this is something that Ben Fields does to other women, not just her. It's not just her beautiful looks and great body, according to Ben Fields. He does this to other women. Maybe his wife also knows that her husband does this to other women. Who knows? Point 35. Upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff, that's now we're talking about Mickey Stines, who shot the sheriff later. He gets deposed in this case and then later loses his shit and shoots the sheriff. Upon information and belief that Letcher County Sheriff and unknown supervisors of defendant Ben Fields failed to adequately train and supervise defendant Fields. Now there comes the argument that the sheriff's department should have known better that this was going on, that deputies were abusing women in the judge's chambers, and maybe the sheriff's department probably knew this and looked the other way. That's the argument that will be made. So, point 36, upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff knew or should have known that defendant Fields was sexually abusing females, including the plaintiff, in his charge. 37, upon information and belief that the Letcher County Sheriff did not reasonably respond to reports or suspicions of sexual abuse perpetrated by defendant Fields. So they're saying Mickey Stines was informed that his deputy was doing this. Other people knew. Remember, we were told other people at the courthouse knew this was going on. It was not a secret anymore that he was having this relationship. Mickey Stines. I'm getting so excited. I'm getting ahead of myself. Mickey Stines should have known that Ben Fields was doing this. It was common knowledge at the courthouse, and he looked the other way. The defendant's conduct, Ben Fields, described above, has caused severe injury to the plaintiff, for which he is entitled to recover actual damages in the amount to be determined at trial. Part of what they're going to argue about is they want a lawsuit so big that it makes these people deterred from ever trying this shit again. This is going to cause a lot of stress on everyone involved. How much money, how many names, who's all going to jail because of what we've been doing and getting away with for a long time. Point 41. This is under a new section. Yeah, this is like a detail of the counts 1 through 5, I think it is. I'm not going to read all the counts because a lot of it's the same stuff we just read, just more detailed. I'm going to highlight just a couple of the details and then we'll move on to the amended complaint when Jennifer Hill gets added to the lawsuit against Ben Fields and then dies and drops all her charges. All right. Point 41, the plaintiff did not consent to the physical contact with the defendant Fields. Plaintiff was coerced by defendant Fields and to the extent that she complied with defendant Fields' physical contact, did so only because she was intimidated by the defendant Fields, who provided plaintiff with privileges in exchange for sexual favors. So they're making it clear that the consensual act of sex was only because he had something on her and she felt she had to comply. In another count, we get another detail, count 3. Defendant Fields was inadequately trained in the areas of proper supervision and interaction with female criminal defendants on home incarceration. This is where Mickey Stines comes in, the sheriff who shot the judge. Now he's being brought in of not only did this happen under your review, but you didn't properly train your officers not to do this kind of thing. The defendants, Letcher County Sheriff, and unknown supervisors of the defendant Fields, together the quote-unquote Letcher County Sheriff's Department. So they're filing a lawsuit against the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, of which Mickey Stines was the head of. So sometimes they mention Mickey Stines by name because he's the head of it, but really it's the whole Sheriff's Department. Later, we'll find out that because the sheriff is fired or resigned or however you want to word it, because he shot the judge in the judge's chamber and now he's no longer sheriff, a new sheriff will come in and they'll just amend the documents later on to list the new sheriff as the head of the sheriff's department. Are you following the logic? So at some point the name's going to change from Mickey Stines to an individual named Jones, who took over as the new sheriff after the sheriff shot the judge. It's a fast-moving case. Follow along. All right. Point 57, the inadequate training of home incarceration officers employed by the Letcher County Sheriff's Department is likely to result in the ongoing violation of constitutional rights. In other words, because they've fostered this community of poorly training their officers that this is unacceptable, it continues to happen. The Letcher County Sheriff's Department policymakers have been deliberately indifferent to this need for adequate training. The Letcher County Sheriff's Department's failure to adequately train, supervise, or discipline their employees approximately caused the violation of the plaintiff's constitutional rights. So they're going after not just Ben Fields for what he did, but the Sheriff's Department for allowing it to happen because they should have been watching out for this. The Letcher County Sheriff's Department substantially caused a constitutional tort to plaintiff through its customs, policy statements, ordinances, regulations, and decisions, and officially adopted and promulgated by the body's officers. In other words, Sabrina Atkins was subjected to all of this against her constitutional rights under the color of law of the Sheriff's Department, which at the time was headed by Mickey Stines. The acts and omissions of Letcher County Sheriff's Department in failing to adequately train and supervise defendant Fields as set forth in this complaint amount to deliberate indifference to the constitutional rights of the plaintiff and a complete disregard for the known and obvious consequences of such indifference, all of which resulted in constitutional violations and tortuous tort issues, conduct described in this complaint and are therefore actionable pursuant to, then it's got 42 USC section 1983. Point 62, plaintiff is entitled to recover compensatory damages against the defendant, Letcher County Sheriff's Department, in the amount sufficient to fully compensate the plaintiff for the damages she suffered as a result of the conduct. Defendant, Letcher County Sheriff's Department, acted willfully, wantonly, recklessly, and maliciously engaged in the conduct set forth. The plaintiff is entitled to recover punitive damages against the defendant, Letcher County Sheriff's Department, in an amount sufficient to punish the defendant for the conduct set forth, as well as deter the defendant and others similarly situated from engaging in such conduct in the future. In other words, we're asking you to sue the living bejesus out of these people and give us an award so big that Letcher County Sheriff's Office and everyone involved in it will never do that kind of shit again. They will be deterred from ever doing that again because the punishment is so high. This may cause a sheriff at the time to become very distressed about how his life is going to unravel in the case of Ben Fields, his deputy. And did that lead to the shooting of the judge? Is that what made him mentally unstable, as they're claiming now? He's mentally unstable. He became very ill, very mentally ill after this whole thing with Ben Stein started to come out, or Ben Fields. Mickey Stines became very mentally unstable. Well, yeah, there's lots of reasons why that would start to happen. And the devil's in the details, as I say on my show all the time. Wherefore, the plaintiff respectively demands the following: an award of compensatory damages against the defendant in an amount sufficient to compensate the plaintiff for damages she suffered as a result of the federal constitutional violations described, an award of compensatory damages against defendants in an amount sufficient to compensate the plaintiff. And basically, again, stating that it needs to be so big of a punishment that people learn never to do that shit again. All right, let's now look at the amended complaint. We're about half hour in. This is a deep dive, so this is, get it, settle in, grab a cup of coffee, all those things that we say on the live show at night. Grab a cup of coffee and sit in. Now comes the amended. The first one was filed in January of 2022, and now in March of 2022, another person's going to join this lawsuit. Another woman is going to come forward saying, yeah, everything that Sabrina Atkins talks about happening at that county happened to me as well in a similar fashion, and I'm going to join the lawsuit. She's going to end up just dying. She's just going to end up dying. We're going to drop all the charges against Ben Fields from that woman because, well, she just fucking died. And again, I can't say she had an accident. I can't say how she died because they won't tell us how she died. Every place, including news media, just says she died and charges were dismissed. How did she die? I've got a request into the coroner's office. I've got a request into multiple agencies trying to find out exactly how did Jennifer Hill die at 44 years old. And they call it an untimely death at some point in here, meaning it wasn't supposed to have happened. Like, it's not something natural. She untimely met her death. I bet she did. Because there's a lot of people who know what's going on in this county, and there's a lot of problems in this county. So now we're going to have Sabrina Atkins joined by Jennifer Hill, the plaintiff, in the first amended complaint. All right, so that's what we're getting into now. Comes the plaintiff, Sabrina Atkins, and Jennifer Hill, together called the plaintiffs, by and through counsel, and for the first amended complaint against defendants as follows. Now, some of we're not going to cover because it's going to outline Sabrina Atkins' whole allegations again. We don't need to cover that. We're just going to focus on the new additional information from Jennifer Hill and how it relates. This is a civil action for damages for violations of constitutional rights by the plaintiffs, by the defendants, acting under color of law. In addition, the plaintiffs allege that the defendant, Ben Fields, is liable under state law. The plaintiffs assert that the defendant Fields, in his individual and official capacities, violated their rights secured by the 4th and 14th Amendments of unreasonable search and seizures. The plaintiffs also allege that the defendant Fields is liable under state law for damages of false imprisonment, assault and battery, malicious prosecution, intentional infliction of emotional distress. That's going to be a key trigger later on. Intentional infliction of emotional distress. We're literally going to argue at some point whether Ben Fields intended to cause emotional distress or whether he was just trying to get his rocks off. If he's just trying to get his rocks off, then he wasn't intentionally causing emotional distress. Their emotional distress is just an unfortunate fallout of him wanting to get his rocks off, is essentially what we're going to say. And that's going to become a major part of this trial at some point, believe it or fucking not. So they're also talking about negligence, gross negligence, and defendant Fields' unknown supervisors and defendant at Letcher County Sheriff's Office are alleged to be liable to plaintiffs for deliberate indifference in failing to adequately train and supervise defendant Fields. So again, in comes Mickey Stines and the Sheriff's Department of allowing this to happen. So we're going to talk about now this new one. We're going to focus on Jennifer as a resident of Perry County. So Sabrina Atkins is up here. We already dealt with her in the first complaint, but now we're going to add Jennifer. We're going to focus really on Jennifer's story next. And keep in mind, so here we're talking about Sabrina's. That's why we're skipping all this. We already know about Sabrina's story. Let's talk about the factual background related to Jennifer Hill, the person who will just die. Just die. Point 29. Jennifer was arrested in Letcher County in 2019 and incarcerated at the Letcher County Jail. By the way, the 2019 thing is going to become a problem. It's going to become part of the reason why even after she died, they're just going to dismiss these charges because of the date. Pay attention. The Letcher County Jail is housed below Letcher County Courthouse in the same building. So these are some new details that come out this is one of the reasons why we break this down. This is factual now that we know. The Letcher County Jail is right underneath the Letcher County Courthouse in the same building. So they would go straight from the court to the jail down below, and that's part of the thing that will come up later. In approximately August of 2020, Jennifer, this is the new person added to this lawsuit, was put on home incarceration and to be supervised by defendant Fields. Same guy involved, same kind of situation, but here's the new details. When Jennifer was first notified that she would be let out on home incarceration, defendant Fields took Jennifer to a small room in the Letcher County Jail to put her ankle monitor on. At this time, defendant Fields told Jennifer that if she could not afford to pay the home incarceration fees, they could work something out. Again, when you've got people who've been in jail and they have no job and they can't go back and get a job very easy, they've got no job because they've been in jail and they can't get a job because they're a criminal, they can't afford the ankle monitor fee. So if you can't pay that fee, I can work something out with you. Typical Ben Fields MO. When Jennifer asked defendant Fields for clarification, so she's like, what do you mean we can work something out? He told her that if Jennifer would do him a favor, he would do her a favor. Jennifer understood defendant Fields to be asking for sex in exchange for a waiver of her home incarceration fees. Jennifer told him no, and that she was not interested. Oh no, that's not going to work with Ben Fields. Defendant Fields had previously gone to Jennifer's home. So defendant Fields had previously gone to Jennifer's home to install a box, which at that time was necessary for home incarceration, and further verified that the house was satisfactory and otherwise complied with home incarceration requirements. So Ben Fields has to install a device in her home to monitor her when she's at home on the home ankle monitor, and he'd already done that before, gone and installed the device in the home. Now, 3 days later, defendant Fields shows up at Jennifer's home and arrested her purportedly because her home was not properly maintained for home incarceration. Listen, Ben Fields installed the box that monitors her and then comes and says, oh, it's not properly installed. I'm arresting you for not properly installing your home monitoring system, which he fucking installed and supervised over. Unbelievable this can happen. This was a pretext, according to point number 39. And meaning he used that bullshit excuse that you're not properly installed as a pretext to further his agenda, which was to force sex upon her. This was a pretext, and upon information and belief, Jennifer was arrested because she refused to comply with defendant Fields' request for sex. Yes, he was like, hey, look, it'd be a shame if you go back to jail because you're not playing ball. I want sex. You told me no. Oh, it's a shame. You're not playing ball. You're going to have to go to jail. Jennifer was finally released from custody sometime later that same year. On or about August 17th, 2021, Jennifer was again arrested in Letcher County, and soon thereafter, she was bonded out of jail on the condition that she comply with home incarceration. So this happened the first time. She gets out. Now she goes back for another account, and the same situation pops up again. Oh, you're back on home arrest? I can work out a deal with you again. Defendant Ben Fields, came to Letcher County Jail to put an ankle monitor on Jennifer. Within a few days, defendant Fields showed up at Jennifer's home with, now this is where it gets crazy. So this is the second time, as I understand it. And Ben Fields came to the jail and put her ankle monitor on. And then a few days later, Ben Fields, along with his Sheriff Mickey Stines and other law enforcement officers and an ambulance, came to her house and said they were responding to a report that she had overdosed. This is where she claims they, Ben Fields and Sheriff Steins, are harassing her at her house. And again, this is important. Mickey Stines will try to act like he didn't know what was going on in his county and his sheriff's department that his deputies were doing. He didn't know. I didn't know this was going on. Now comes an allegation that Ben Fields, along with Mickey Stines, goes to her house and harasses her with this false claim that, hey, we heard you overdosed. We're just here to check on you. Make sure you're okay. Point 44 states this was false. Jennifer did not have an overdose, and this was a pretext to come to her house and harass her with the sheriff in tow. This was false, and Jennifer was in the process of uploading groceries, or unloading groceries from the car when these individuals arrived. So she's grocery shopping. She didn't have an OD. She's grocery shopping when the sheriff and the sheriff's deputies and all kinds of people show up and start to tell, hey, we're here to make sure you're okay. We heard you overdosed. Bull fucking shit. Upon information and belief, this report and visit was orchestrated by defendant Ben Fields in an attempt to intimidate and harass Jennifer. I agree. Defendant Fields stayed at Jennifer's home after all other law enforcement, emergency services, and personnel left, and threatened to take Jennifer in for a drug screen and further attempted to intimidate and harass Jennifer. So Ben Fields shows up with the sheriff, Mickey Stines, and other law enforcement officers and an ambulance, and then everyone leaves and Ben Fields stays behind, basically as a reminder, hey, you want this shit to keep happening? Like, you need to comply with my request for sex. I would hate to have to pull you in for a drug screening test and other things that I can do. I'm just getting started. That's me interjecting a lot of extra shit. The next day, defendant Fields returned to Jennifer's house and parked his Letcher County Sheriff's Department vehicle behind her house where it was hidden from passerbys. He's still coming back to harass her. Defendant Fields knocked on Jennifer's door and instructed Jennifer that if she did not do as he said, he would put her back in jail. Defendant Fields told Jennifer that if she made him happy, he would make her happy. He further told her that if he was not happy, neither of them would be happy. Again, Ben Fields will later say, this is mutual. She was just making me happy, and I was making her happy. It's a mutual arrangement. Jennifer understood him to mean that if she did not do as he instructed, he would make sure that she ended up back in jail as he had done the prior year. Any reasonable person would probably assume that as well, and a jury needs to hear it. Oh, wait, I forgot. Jennifer Hill's just going to die, so she's not going to get to tell her story. I forgot. Defendant Fields then commanded Jennifer to come outside and get into the front seat of his vehicle, which she did. Defendant Fields then got on into the front seat of the vehicle also and told Jennifer that he wanted oral sex. So yeah, officer gets in the car with her right there at her house and says, you need to blow me. Jennifer involuntarily complied with his instructions. There you go. She complied. Ben Fields is going to say, yeah, she likes to blow me in my squad car. What are you going to do about it? She likes that. Is that what it feels like to you? Everything that you've been told, is that what it feels like to you? Any juror in my opinion, who hears the whole story. Oh yeah, you're right. You're not going to hear the story because she died. Thereafter, defendant Fields offered to pay Jennifer's home incarceration fees. So after she blew him, he said, hey, I'll pay your home monitoring fees. Good job. You've earned yourself a paycheck. Jennifer's fiance. Oh yeah. Did I mention Jennifer had a fiance? She's blowing a sheriff's deputy in the parked car outside of his house where her fiance is at. That just is another thing. Jennifer's fiance assisted her with these payments, and she did not want him to find out about the incarceration with defendant Fields, so she said no. So, in other words, what's happening there is he's offering to pay for her home ankle monitoring fees, but because her fiance helps her pay those fees, how is she going to explain to him that all of a sudden she doesn't have to pay those fees? That might lead to a conversation as, gee, what's happened that you no longer have to pay your fees and you're still on your ankle monitor? Oh, well, I'm blowing the sheriff's deputy. Oh, I have a problem with that as your fiance. That's the conversation she was trying to avoid happening. I like breaking things down in simple terms. All right, so defendant Fields then notified Jennifer that he would be back in a couple of days, and then left. So he initially takes no for an answer. I'm going to pay for your fees. No, I can't have you do that. My fiance will find out I'm blowing you in exchange for fees. I can't have that happen. All right, I'll be back in a couple of days. Jennifer told a friend and roommate about what occurred, but did not tell her fiance about defendant Fields at this time. And why wouldn't that be natural? Like, holy shit, I'm getting coerced and forced into oral sex on a deputy, but I can't tell my fiance because he's going to lose his shit. He'll probably break off the relationship. He won't accept that that's okay to blow a sheriff's deputy in exchange for some release of money, right? So, because maybe the fiance would have paid those fees for her in exchange for not having her have to blow the sheriff's deputy. Whatever the point being, it's logical that she would tell friends but not tell her fiance. Approximately 3 days later, defendant Fields returned to Jennifer's home and in a similar fashion instructed her to have sexual intercourse with him in the backseat of the Letcher County Sheriff's Department vehicle while he was driving. Oh, sorry, that he was driving, not while he was. I was like, how do you do that? How do you have sex in the backseat while you're driving? Reading comprehension skills just failed me right there. So he's having intercourse with her in the backseat of the car that he was driving. Not at the time. They're not both in the backseat at the time he's driving. Good clarification. Jennifer involuntarily complied with defendant Fields' instructions. So for another time, they had sex. Whether this is oral or sexual intercourse, we don't know. Point being is that there was another sexual encounter with the sheriff's deputy and Jennifer Hill in the backseat of his squad car. Defendant Fields again told Jennifer that if she kept him happy, he would keep her happy, and told her not to tell anyone about what had occurred. There were two additional times in the weeks and months that followed when defendant Fields similarly came to Jennifer's home and instructed her to have sexual intercourse with him in the backseat of his Letcher County Sheriff's Department vehicle. You got to wonder if her fiance was home at the time that she's banging the sheriff's deputy in the back of his car. But that's a whole nother story. Jennifer involuntarily complied. And yes, I'm a little crude the way I explain things. These are tragic circumstances, but I say things in plain English so you can understand what's happening. And sometimes that leads to vulgar comments. Forgive me. Jennifer involuntarily complied with his instructions on these occasions also. So she continued to have sexual intercourse with the sheriff's deputy in his squad car outside of her house on multiple occasions, of which Ben Fields would say, look, it's completely mutual. She would come out and have sex with me in the car. What part of mutual do you not understand? Jennifer told her roommate and friend about these additional instances of sexual abuse and or about the dates that they occurred. So there's people that she's telling this is happening. Each time defendant Fields came to Jennifer's home for sex, he was wearing his Letcher County Sheriff's Department uniform, driving his Letcher County Sheriff's Department vehicle. So he's under color of law. He's using his authority. You will respect my authority. All right. Each time defendant Fields came to Jennifer's house for sex, he reminded her that she needed to keep him happy and that he would have her arrested and put in jail were he to make her and put her in jail where he would make her life miserable. Sorry, I can't fucking read that sentence for some reason. So he basically says, keep me happy or I'll put you back in jail. That's what that sentence says because I can't read it apparently. Jennifer was coerced and compelled to comply with defendant Fields' instructions, given defendant Fields' position of power over her. This is the crux of the argument. look, this was mutual. She liked him. She flirted with them. This was a mutual agreement. She didn't have to do it. And they'll argue, yeah, when you're under color of law and you're telling me I'm going to go back to jail if I don't do it, it is not consensual. Jennifer did not consent to this sexual abuse, is point 67. She did not consent. Even though she willingly got into the back of the squad car and willingly did things with them, she did not consent to it. It is an abuse of power. On or about October 2021, Defendant Fields came to Jennifer's home and demanded sex. Jennifer told Defendant Fields that she could not have sex with him, telling him that her fiance was on his way home. Hey, I'm sorry, today I can't bang you in the back of your sheriff's car because my fiance is on the way home right now. So on this same occasion, she asked, so he understands. Here's what happens. He understands apparently, okay, this one time will not have sex in the back of my squad car right outside your house because your fiance is about to be here. Okay, I get it. I won't make you have sex with me today. At that same time, she says, by the way, I would like to go visit my newborn granddaughter in London, Kentucky. By the way, there was a comment earlier about in episode number 2, Devil's Details number 2, where I talked about how the trial was happening in London. It's not London, England. It's London, Kentucky. I should have mentioned that then. Anyways, Defendant Fields agreed and removed Jennifer's ankle monitor so she could make the trip. So he willingly takes her off of her ankle monitor instead of getting sex that day because he understands, hey, look, your fiance's coming back. I won't bang you in front of your fiance. Nice guy. And so therefore I went ahead and let her go off the ankle monitor. But here's the catch. Upon information and belief, Defendant Fields then reported that Jennifer had violated a condition of her bond and she was arrested. So I want to have sex with you in the back of my squad car. Well, I can't. My fiance is on the way home. Okay. And I'd like to go see my newborn. Can you go ahead and take me off the ankle monitor so I can do my business? Sure. I'll take you off the ankle monitor. And then promptly went and had her arrested for being off of her ankle monitor. Son of a bitch. This guy is a piece of work, right? At the time she was arrested, Jennifer's belongings, including her cell phone, were confiscated. So she was arrested, and now Ben Fields has control of her phone. Jennifer remained incarcerated in the Letcher County Jail from late October 2021 through December 17th, 2021. This is going to be a key point of finding because the times that she says certain things happened and whatever is going to become a contentious thing, and they're going to say that she didn't file complaints in a proper amount of time, and therefore her case is dismissed, on top of the fact that she's dead and she can't do anything about it anymore. Within the first couple of days after her arrest, in the presence of Deputy Sheriff Whitaker, Defendant Fields told Jennifer to remember what I told you and keep your mouth shut. Deputy Sheriff Whitaker, another deputy sheriff under Mickey Stines' employ, Ben Fields and another Deputy Sheriff Whitaker tells her in front of witnesses, remember what I told you, keep your fucking mouth shut, essentially. On approximately 3 occasions, Defendant Fields and his wife, Angie Fields, who worked at the Letcher County Jail, removed Jennifer from her cell in an attempt to gain information regarding other inmates. Listen, Ben Fields and his wife, Angie Field, who work at the detention center while Jennifer's back being incarcerated because he put her back in jail for being off her ankle monitor that he fucking took her off of. Are you following this fucking bullshit? Are you following it? Ben Fields asks for sex. She denies him sex. He takes her off the ankle monitor and then has her arrested for being off her ankle monitor. And now he and his wife, who work at the correctional facility as well, are bringing her out of the cell and using her to try to turn in information about other inmates so they can build other cases against people. And probably so Ben Fields can continue to work out his little fucking magical agreement on other female inmates. Holy shit. Please understand what's happening in this county. Point 75, upon information and belief that the actions described in the 2 preceding paragraphs were done to harass and intimidate Jennifer. Point 76, in December 2021, Jennifer was released from Letcher County Jail on condition that she participate in drug court. Then point 77, when Jennifer was leaving the Letcher County Jail, all of her belongings were returned to her except for her cell phone, which had mysteriously disappeared. Why is it disappearing? I would say because Ben Fields has a bunch of text messages between the two of them showing that they had an ongoing sexual relationship, and he wanted to make sure those text messages didn't get shared like before. Upon information and belief, defendant Fields or persons working on his behalf took Jennifer's cell phone because they were incriminating communications between Jennifer and defendant Fields on her phone. So this is alleging this is exactly what they did. They took her phone, didn't return it to her because it had incriminating information on her phone that the two of them were engaged in sexual conduct that may not be entirely consensual. Upon information and belief, defendant Fields' sister, Holly, works for the Letcher County County Drug Court Program. Oh my God. Oh my God. She, Jennifer Hill, is told to go to drug court, of which defendant Ben Fields' sister, Holly, works for that drug court. Are you fucking kidding me? So Ben Fields, his wife works at the detention center where Jennifer's held. His sister works at the drug court where she's told to report. He's got control over every aspect of her life. It's a shame she doesn't get to tell her story because she just gets to die. Point 80. After being released and in the presence of Jennifer's fiance, defendant Fields notified Jennifer that his sister Holly had just notified defendant Fields that Jennifer would soon be arrested due to a warrant from another county. Listen, after being released in the presence of Jennifer's fiance, Ben Fields tells Jennifer that his sister Holly, who works for the drug court, has just informed him that she's going to be arrested for a warrant from another county. Oh my fucking God. During the same conversation, defendant Fields, Ben Fields, told Jennifer that she needed to run to avoid arrest. And she did. Holy shit. Ben Fields acting like he's her friend. Hey, look, you got a warrant out for your arrest. My sister, who works at the drug court, says you're about to be arrested in another county. I'd run if I were you. I'd fucking run if I were you. And then I'm going to have you arrested when you run. I'd run if I were you. On December 17th, 2021, a warrant was issued for Jennifer's arrest for a reported drug court violation. Oh, Ben Fields told her about this drug court thing coming on, told her to run, and then he has her arrested for a drug court violation. On or about February 4th, 2022, Jennifer was arrested and since this time has been held in Perry County, Kentucky at the Kentucky River Regional Jail on a drug court violation, where his sister works. That's at the time of this filing. Jennifer is terrified. So Jennifer Hill is in incarceration at the time that this amended complaint. She's in incarceration in a court involving Ben Fields and his sister and his wife and everybody else and their fucking dog in this thing. And she's in incarceration and terrified for her safety, but she's still joining the lawsuit against Ben Fields, and then she'll just die. Please tell me you're as pissed off about this and intrigued about this and want answers as I do. Please tell me you're that kind of human being. Make sure you like and subscribe, by the way. We're not done, but this is a reminder. This is good shit. If you believe in getting to the bottom of this and holding people accountable, you should be following this channel all day, every day, and twice on Sunday. Or at least on Saturdays when we do the deep dives. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant's actions, Jennifer has suffered and continues to suffer emotional distress, pain, suffering, and mental anguish. Okay, additional facts and background related to the Letcher County Sheriff's Department. So now we're going to get the Mickey Stines details on this document, and then we're going to try to finish in the last 20 minutes or so some supplemental stuff about the rulings on some of this shit. We may have to do that in a separate document. Now that I'm realizing it's going so long, we may save the third document for later. It's kind of lengthy. It's about the rulings that the judge made just recently about all this shit happening years ago. Maybe we'll save that for a separate document or video. Additional factual background related to the Letcher County Sheriff's Department. This is under Mickey Stines that shot that sheriff later after being deposed in this case. Upon information and belief, in December 2021, defendant Ben Fields, as well as numerous other persons who work at the Letcher County Jail, Letcher County Courthouse, and the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, were aware that Sabrina had made allegations against defendant Fields as described above. Sabrina Atkins first started the lawsuit, and they're saying he and everyone in the court, everyone in the Letcher County Sheriff's Office knew about the lawsuit against one of their deputies. Everyone knew. The whole department knew that Sabrina had filed a lawsuit against one of their deputies. That's important. Upon information and belief, a complaint was made by a friend of Sabrina Atkins to persons working in Letcher County Drug Court program about sexual harassment and abuse by defendant Fields against Sabrina. So other people are coming forward. When they heard about Sabrina Atkins' lawsuit, other people at the Letcher County Drug Court program were saying that they know about abuse and problems with defendant Fields against Sabrina. Upon information and belief, the complaint either provided copies of inappropriate text messages between defendant Fields and Sabrina, or notified such persons that text messages existed. So people are now coming forward and saying, yeah, we've got proof. We've got text messages. We've got history between these two showing that there's a problem. Once she filed that lawsuit, people came forward and said, yeah, we know about that. We've always known about that. Everyone in the fucking county knows about this, including your sheriff. Upon further information and belief, defendant Fields and other Letcher County deputy sheriffs were aware of these allegations related to Sabrina in early December 2021. Everyone, including the sheriff, was aware of it in December 2021. Upon information and belief, Sheriff Steins knew or should have known about these allegations related to Sabrina on or before early 2021. So this is establishing, this whole thing is establishing that Sheriff Steins knew what the fuck's going on. He can't play dumb in his deposition. This is all going to inform why that judge got shot in the judge's chambers. I'm telling you. Point 9-1, upon information and belief, these allegations were not appropriately investigated by Sheriff Steins. So Sheriff Steins did not do a proper investigation about the things that were going on in his own department. In early December 2021, Sheriff's fiance, so remember Jennifer Hill, who's dead now, her fiance called the Letcher County Sheriff's Department to complain about Ben Fields' actions. So at some point, Jennifer's fiance finds out what's happening between his fiance and Ben Fields, and he calls the Sheriff's Department to complain about what's happening. During this call, Jennifer's fiance spoke to a female Letcher County Sheriff's Department a deputy and notified her that defendant Fields had been sexually harassing his fiance, Jennifer. The female Letcher County Sheriff's deputy hung up on Jennifer's fiance. She just hung up on him. Hey, by the way, one of your deputies is harassing and sexually harassing my fiance. Click, hangs up on him. On December 15th, 2021, Jennifer's fiance went. Now he's like, I'm not going to fucking call you. I'm going to the sheriff's office. On December 15th, Jennifer's fiance went to the Letcher County Sheriff's Department in person to make a complaint against defendant Fields. Jennifer's fiance spoke to Letcher County Deputy Sheriff Whitaker. Remember, Whitaker earlier was with Ben Fields when they told her to shut her mouth about things. Jennifer's fiance spoke to Letcher County Sheriff Whitaker, who told him that the complaint would be investigated and he needed to keep quiet about this while it was being investigated. Earlier, they told Jennifer, keep your fucking mouth shut, and now they're telling her fiance, keep your mouth shut while we investigate this. Very soon after leaving the sheriff's department, however, Jennifer's fiance was pulled over in his vehicle by Letcher County Deputy Sheriff Norris, who was accompanied by a female deputy. So he leaves complaining about inappropriate sexual conduct of sheriff deputies and gets pulled over. What a coincidence. Deputy Norris asked Jennifer's fiance what the fuck he thought he was doing and told him that he needed to keep his fucking nose out of the sheriff department's business. Now, one can argue that's hearsay. That's what he's saying, right? That's what Jennifer's fiance is saying. I was pulled over and they told me to keep my fucking mouth shut, asked me what the fuck I thought I was doing, and to stay out of the sheriff's department's business. Could be hearsay. We don't have proof that it was saying, but that is on the record as what happened. I believe it probably did. All things considered, do you not think that's probably what happened? Exactly what happened. Later this same day, Jennifer's fiance was pulled over again, twice, by a man who refused to identify himself by name, who was driving a red Silverado pickup truck, wore a badge, and was carrying a gun. So it looks like an unmarked car somehow pulled him over, and the guy's got a badge and a gun, and he pulls him over. This individual identified himself as being from the sheriff's department and told Jennifer's fiance that he had stuck his nose where it didn't belong and called him a liar. He's being threatened. You better shut the fuck up and stay out of sheriff's department's business. And let me remind you again, we've got cops all over the place, unmarked cars, whatever. You're sticking your nose in where it doesn't belong. And later, your fiance, she's just going to die because she's fucking not keeping her nose out of where it doesn't belong. And again, I'm making a lot of hints, right? I don't know how Jennifer Hill died. That's the whole point. No one knows how Jennifer Hill died. Why the fuck is that a mystery, people? Why is it a mystery why Jennifer Hill died? All things considered, all the threats being made against her and her fiance, keep your fucking nose out of this. You better stay out of the sheriff department's business. You better not be poking into this. Bad things are going to happen. Oh, she died. And no one's going to ask how she died. No one's going to ask. Mainstream media, you motherfuckers, you're not going to ask how Jennifer Hill died. None of you have the goddamn integrity to ask why Jennifer Hill died. You don't think there's a possible mysterious death here? You don't think she was murdered? You don't even question that? What is wrong with America? Yes, sometimes I go on explosive rants. That was one of them. Fuck. All right. Sorry. It makes me mad, as you can see. This individual further threatened Jennifer's fiance and his family and told him to forget about his complaint about defendant Fields. I want to reach out to this. We do have this fiance's name. I do want to reach out to him and ask him, but you know what? He's being threatened. Him and his family are being threatened with death. His fiance has already had it. I don't know. His fiance already died. So is he going to talk to anybody? I don't know. Sheriff Stines, by the way, who shot the judge, will state that his life and his family's life were being threatened. And yet, you mainstream media pieces of crap will continue to tell you, well, Sheriff Stines clearly has some mental issues. He thinks everybody's out to kill his family, and there's no proof of that. In fact, his family has come forward and said that nobody's threatened them at all, so he's just losing his mind. Mainstream media coverage, we're out. CNN, thank you very much for listening. You sons of bitches. You sons of bitches. You spineless pieces of shit, in my humble opinion. I hope I can get away with that. Tell me that's my opinion. Everything in this show is opinion. At the very beginning, we have a disclaimer. I realize as I'm ranting about what pieces of shit mainstream media are and accusing them of purposely looking the other way, that maybe somebody's going to say I'm getting defamation going here. This is all opinion. Everything about my whole position is opinion. My opinion is mainstream media is failing us. They don't ask the right questions. They ignore things, and they repeat the narrative. Oh, Mickey Stines must be having some mental problems. He thinks people are trying to kill people in this county. Well, no shit. People are dying in this county. Upon further information, let me go back. Point 103. During that time, that individual was detaining and threatening Jennifer's fiance. He was speaking to another unknown person on his cell phone on a radio in his truck. So this person in this red truck with a badge and a gun threatening him about keeping his nose out of sheriff's department's business is talking to somebody else. So it's like he's being instructed or other people know about it. Everyone in this county is threatening this family. Upon information and belief, this individual was speaking to other persons employed by the Letcher County Sheriff's Department. So that this fiance believed that he was talking to other people in the Sheriff's Department. A couple hours later, Jennifer's fiance was stopped for a third time in the same day after complaining about a sheriff's deputy banging his fiance. A couple hours later, Jennifer's fiance was stopped for a third time by another Letcher County Sheriff's deputy driving his a space would be nice there for reading comprehension, driving his official vehicle. Point 106. This deputy notified Jennifer's fiance that there had been a lot of chatter about defendant Fields and his complaint that day. So yeah, he's getting pulled over left and right after complaining about the sheriff's deputy. This deputy then told Jennifer's fiance that they didn't need any trouble like this in the Letcher County Sheriff's Department because they were all barely getting paid as it was. So this guy's threatening him again in a more good cop, bad cop kind of way. Hey, look, man, we don't need your ass around here complaining about the sheriff's department. We barely make enough money around here as it is. We don't need these kind of lawsuits. We don't need this kind of hassle. It would be a shame if somebody dies in your family. I added that last part in. This deputy was also speaking to someone on his cell phone or radio during the exchange. Upon information and belief, the above mentioned communications to Jennifer's fiance were aimed at intimidating, harassing, and silencing Jennifer. She did get silenced, I would argue, when she died. Upon further information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff's Department failed to reasonably investigate the allegations related to Jennifer. So now we're getting to the Sheriff's Department and Mickey Stines failing to stop what happened, including Jennifer just dying. Upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff's unknown supervisors of defendant fields failed to adequately train and supervise the defendant fields and other Letcher County Sheriff Department employees. Upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff knew or should have known that defendant fields was sexually abusing females, including plaintiffs in his charge. Upon information and belief that other persons employed by Letcher County Sheriff's Department have harassed, intimidated persons associated with Sabrina and Jennifer in an attempt to discourage the women from coming forward and to disparage Sabrina and Jennifer. Upon information and belief, the Letcher County Sheriff did not timely or reasonably respond to reports or suspicions of sexual abuse perpetrated by the defendant fields. Defendant conducted described above, or the defendant's conduct described above has caused severe injury to the plaintiffs, for which they are entitled to recover actual damages in the amount determined at trial. And then there's some details about the counts. We're only going to touch on a couple, and then we'll finish here. The plaintiffs were coerced by defendant fields to the extent that they complied with defendant fields' physical contact. They did so only because they were intimidated by defendant fields, who provided plaintiffs with privilege in exchange for sexual favors. So again, no, they were not willingly having sex with you because you're such a hot deputy. They were having sex with you because you told them that they would, and proved they would go to jail if they didn't. And their families were threatened if they said anything and didn't stay the fuck out of Sheriff Department's business. Defendant Letcher County Sheriff and unknown supervisors of the defendant fields, together known as the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, knew or should have known about defendant fields abusing his power and taking advantage of females on home incarceration under his control. Inadequate training of home incarceration officers employed by the Letcher County Sheriff's Department is likely a result of the ongoing violation of constitutional rights. The Letcher County Sheriff's Department policymakers have been deliberately indifferent to the need for adequate training. The Letcher County Sheriff's Department's failure to adequately train, supervise, or discipline their employees proximately caused the violation of the plaintiff's constitutional rights. The Letcher County Sheriff's Department, headed by Mickey Stines, substantially caused a constitutional tort to the plaintiff through its customs, policies, statements, ordinances, regulations, and decisions officially adopted and promulgated by that body's officers. The acts and omissions of the Letcher County Sheriff's Department, headed by Mickey Stines, in failing to adequately train and supervise defendant Ben Fields, as set forth in the complaint, amount to deliberate indifference to the constitutional rights of the plaintiffs and complete disregard for known and obvious consequences of such indifferences, all of which resulted in constitutional violations and tortious conduct described in this complaint, and therefore actionable. And basically it ends with saying, we want you to sue the living bejesus out of them to get some kind of deterrent going so that they never do this kind of shit again. Now, I know that was a lot, and I know I ranted a lot, and I want to apologize one more time for getting so hot and heated that I started to call people names. I don't like calling people names. I do want you to know how passionately I feel, however, that mainstream media are spineless in their lack of coverage, that when somebody dies in a case such as this, when it is so blatantly obvious that the family was being threatened, that witnesses were being threatened, that they were being told by multiple people's admission to shut the fuck up and stay out of people's business, and then someone dies, maybe somebody should ask a follow-on question. I will ask the follow-on questions. Keep following this. Subscribe right now. This case is nuts. Follow the Mickey Stines case. Follow my other cases. All of them have great shit. And stay tuned for our next deep dive. Every week, I'm going to pick a deep dive to get into. Every Saturday, I'm going to do a deep dive on one of the Devils in the Details episodes from the week before. So I will guarantee you Mickey Stein's case will have something new next week. Whether it warrants the deep dive on Saturday next week, we don't know. There's lots of stuff happening in the Idaho 4 case, new documents coming out. More than likely, that's going to be the deep dive next Saturday. But make sure you subscribe, because it could be a while before the next big one comes out, and you do want to follow this story. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. The Devil's in the Details.